You're listening to Odyssey, A Tale from the Road, an audiobook by Christopher Cologne. All rights reserved. Any resemblance to persons living or dead are purely coincidental.
Chapter 33. Melissa was a woman with connections. You couldn't tell that from just looking at her. But that's how she wanted to be perceived. She chose to live in this small corner of the world. It was her paradise, her world that she was in charge of. In life, she had seemed to have met and interacted with thousands of people, from janitors to the CEOs of corporations. Her life had touched so many others, and now it was touching mine. They say that there are 6 degrees of separation between people throughout the world. Any 2 people could find each other through 6 of their associates and so on. Not Melissa. Melissa had 1 degree of separation with the rest of the world. I wouldn't be surprised if she had the President of the United States on her speed dial. She had got me a car. Nothing fancy, it was just your average compact car, relatively new, fuel efficient. She had brought me outside to the front of the lounge and had surprised me by placing the keys in my hand. The car had reflected the sunlight off its polished exterior, and had almost radiated as if it was almost supernatural. Where did you get this? I should have known not to ask questions. Melissa wasn't underhanded. This wasn't a stolen car or anything like that. She was just being generous, and in my stupidity, I was looking a gift horse in the mouth. Don't worry about that. It's yours now. She said, smiling. I don't know how to repay you. I have a couple of bucks saved up. You've been so good to me. I said, choked up. This isn't what this is all about, Andy. I don't do anything for people to expect repayment. This is a gift. You want to pay me back? Go home. Go get your girl. That would make me happy. Take control of your own life and live it the way you want to live. Money means nothing if you're unhappy. I learned that a long time ago. If you want to live in a mansion, by all means, make money and buy a mansion, but only if that is what your heart desires. I know you have been existing here, but you haven't been really living. You have to go and live life to the fullest. I've given you all I can, and now you have to pursue the rest for yourself. I love you, Andy. The same way I loved all my guests. But I can't offer you any happiness. That you have to get on your own. It was the most profound thing anybody has ever said to me. Then, for some reason, I felt guilty. Like I wasn't living up to my potential. Melissa had faith in me and I was squandering it, in my inertia. I needed to move on and live up to my expectations. I never felt this much love before in my life. Sure, my parents loved me, and my friends loved, and ex-girlfriends loved me. But this was different. Melissa had no vested interest in my life. She had nothing to gain. She already has everything she'll ever need. I was just some guy, living in her house, eating her food, and performing in her club. She didn't have to do anything for me, yet here she was, investing in my future. My self-confidence was boosted beyond any level it had been in years. I wonder if this is how Melissa treated all her guests. In my time there, guys seemed to have just come and gone, without saying goodbye. It was just status quo. Here today, gone the next. It was part of the purgatory, limbo vibe of the place. I'm sure it wasn't the first time she has sent a man off to his new life in a vehicle. I went upstairs and packed my things. I have to admit, that I felt a little pathetic, that all my worldly goods were easily packed into the back seat of the compact car. I had been living out of the small room over the Calypso lounge anyway. All the furniture and appliances had been community property. All I really had was the guitar that Melissa gave me, some changes of underwear, toiletries, the letter from Minerva, and the hooded sweatshirt that Eddie gave me. Half of my stuff, including the car, was given to me. Life on the road had taught me to pack light. Melissa refused to take any money from me. She told me to hold onto it for food, gas, and tolls. I kept the lounge tradition, and didn't say goodbye to any of my roommates. I just up and left. Melissa told me that I was always invited to come back. Her door was always opened. That meant a lot to me. But I knew, deep in my heart, that I had better not see her until I had fulfilled my dreams. When and if I saw her again, it would be as a different man. Not as the broken, road-weary wretch that had shown up on her doorstep. Next time it would be as an accomplished musician and person who lived life to the fullest. Then I thought about all the people that Melissa had known. I wondered if the powerful men that she had known were once petty vagabonds, like I am now. Were they powerful now, because that had been given her divine touch? Behind every powerful man is an even more powerful woman. Melissa had been the backbone to countless men before me. Now I had to go and do her proud, lest I misuse a gift bestowed on me from the heavens. Thankfully, the trip from the Calypso Lounge to my hometown in Ithaca was uneventful. Seeing some of the long stretches of roads that I knew I had to march down sent chills down my spine. I wanted to speed through those areas as fast as I could, but I didn't want to get pulled over by some overzealous highway patrolman. I kept checking my rear-view mirror. I couldn't shake the feeling that at any moment I would see those black Cadillacs swarming behind me. They would be looking to finish their job of wiping me off the face of the planet. Nobody knew I was in the car. Nobody would be expecting me. Unless I was being set up by Melissa or Minerva. Highly unlikely, but I learned, the hard way, that you can't trust everyone. When I saw Ithaca in the horizon, I became flooded with emotions. First happiness, then apprehension, then regret, then unrelenting fear. I was genuinely happy to be home. I wanted to see my family and friends. I hoped they were all safe. I could live with myself if Arnie Ellis or his men had hurt any of them, in any way. I needed a way to check to see if the coast was clear before I attempted to make contact. Here I was just miles away from Mom and Dad, and I might as well have been on the other side of the world. I didn't want to compromise their safety. Then I thought of the families of Corey, Jimmy, Dimitri, and especially Raphael. What did they know about what had happened? They had to be worried about their sons. Would they be angry at me? Would they blame me for the arrests of their kids? Or did the guys just disappear under the cloak of Arnie Ellis's influence? If my bandmates were missing, I would be able to help them put the pieces together. But they would be angry that I was the sole survivor. Their anger towards me might be just as bad as whatever the whale could throw my way. I would really have to face Raphael's family. That was my duty as a man. This wasn't going to be a happy homecoming. Driving down the streets of Ithaca. Not much in the geography of the city had changed since the last time I was home. I fell into my old habits of driving down certain routes. More out of habit than anything else. I stood off the main streets and took side roads. They were shortcuts that helped me avoid red lights, but it was a wise strategical move also. If my paranoia confirmed that there were guys looking for me, it would be likely they would patrol the main roads, especially if they weren't as familiar with my hometown as I was. I had left the Calypso Lounge with plenty of time to drive within the legal limits and make it to town with hours to spare. The letter that Minerva sent me had no specific time on when to meet her, but it was obvious that she wanted to meet before the concert. It was going to be so good to see a familiar friendly face. Minerva had always looked at me with lust and awe in her eyes. In the past I had shunned that kind of attention. Now, I was craving that look, the way a drug addict craves his next fix. Not that I wanted to hook up with Minerva. It's just that I had taken her for granted in the past, and I promised myself I would never make that mistake again. Minerva was a true friend, and this lifeline she threw in my direction was rescuing me from myself. I drove towards the area that was known by the local kids as the penis bowl. I would keep my eyes open for Minerva. A tall girl like that wouldn't be hard to miss. I still couldn't believe I missed her, the night she visited the Calypso Lounge. It's just a testament to how withdrawn I was into myself. I didn't even recognize a familiar form in the crowd. It was a little hard to see your audience, once the stage lights were shining in my eyes. But I must have been in deep reflection to miss her. I would casually drive in circles around the area until I saw Minerva. Almost instantly when approaching my destination, I noticed Minerva's car. Funny thing is that she drove this little hatchback car. I remember hanging out with her after gigs in the parking lots of the places we played. At the end of the night she would fold her huge frame into that tiny little car. It was comical. She reminded me of Alice in Wonderland after she ate, or drank the item that made her huge. Imagine an adult hunched over in a child's playground version of a car. That's what Minerva looked like. We joked about her ripping out the driver's seat so she could sit in the back seat to drive comfortably. I'm sure she might have entertained the idea of doing that seriously. I prayed that she never got into an accident with that little car she wedged herself into. She would be killed immediately if that car was to have a collision with any other object, mobile or stationary. Cautiously, Still expecting this to be some sort of setup, I parked the car within view of Minerva's car, but not close enough for anyone to make the connection that we knew each other. I gave it a moment before I got out of the car. Mostly to get my heart to stop racing. Nervous energy had me buzzing to the point that I might just spontaneously explode. I was behind her car and had a pretty decent view from all directions of oncoming vehicle and pedestrian traffic. Nothing looked out of the ordinary. Then again, Arnie Ellis was a scheming son of a bitch. He wanted me to drop my guard if he was going to spring a trap, using Minerva as the bait. Once I was calm, I got out the car. I nonchalantly surveyed my surroundings and approached Minerva's car. Things were so quiet and calm I could clearly hear that she was playing music to pass the time as she waited for me. I could see from the reflection of the driver's side mirror, that she was too engrossed in singing along to the song blasting on her stereo for her to notice me approaching her car. Then I caught her attention in the mirror. She did a double take and awkwardly turned in her car to confirm her suspicions. Yep, it was me, walking towards her. She almost killed herself trying to quickly extricate her gangly body from the confines of her small car. Andy! She yelled as finally got to her feet and threw her arms out, in a condor-like wingspan, to embrace me. She wrapped herself around me and for a moment I was lost in the valley of her bosom. Her body language said it all. She was happy to see me, and if she had it her way, she would never let me go. Then I thought, if this was a setup, she might as well had shot a flare gun into the sky. She had given both of us up, for the whole world to see. If Arnie Ellis or his men were hiding in the shadows, I was dead meat.
Please visit twostrangersonePodcast.net.